everyone, and welcome to the Christian Homeschool Moms podcast. I'm Demetria, your host, and this is episode number 130. So thank you so much for joining me. If you're brand new to the podcast, welcome. You can watch this podcast on YouTube. My channel is Mom Zest. So if you are over on iTunes or Spotify, I wanted to make a plug right here for you to come on over to the YouTube channel because you'll be able to see my guest and I actually talk with each other and see our interactions. So that's kind of important. But for those of you who are already here on YouTube, thanks for watching. You can also subscribe in iTunes and Spotify. So I want to not take too much of your time today because I have a wonderful guest and you're going to need about 45 minutes to an hour to listen in because this is a wonderful conversation that I had with Andrea. So I'm going to jump right into it. Andrea Thorpe is my guest today. She's been a friend of mine for quite a few years and we met online, but we have stayed in touch over the years. And I just feel like she and I have a lot in common and I really enjoy talking to her. She's so encouraging and you guys will love her too. You will love her because she has so much to offer you guys. She's a straight shooter. She's straightforward. I love her honesty. I love her integrity. So much about her that I love. So I want you to listen in because Andrea is going to encourage you in your homeschool endeavors. So without further ado, we're going to get straight into the interview and I'll be back at the end for some last words. Today, I have with me a friend of mine who I've known for quite some time now. She is a homeschool mom. Her name is Andrea Thorpe. She runs a blog called African American Homeschool Moms.com. And she's here with us today to share with us about her homeschool journey and how she can encourage you. So Andrea, welcome. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's good to actually see you and chat with you again, because I know it's been a little bit of time since we've been able to do that.
Yes, I'm so glad to chat with you. Now, since we've known each other, we actually met each other through homeschooling, through online actually. And I already know a little bit about your family, but I would love for you to share and introduce to our audience a little bit about yourself, your family, how long you've been homeschooling, and just like maybe how you got started with home education.
Okay, so the first thing is I'm all the way on the other side of the country. I'm in New Jersey, on the East Coast, and I have been homeschooling. This is year 13 for us. It's hard for me to wrap my brain around it when I say it because sometimes I still feel new at homeschooling, but when I say 13 and I have a child on her way to college in the fall, then I can say I'm not really new at this. But we've been homeschooling for 13 years here in New Jersey. I have a high school senior this year who is 17. I have a high school sophomore who is 16. And I have a fifth grader who is 10 years old. All three of them are girls. And my husband is here with us too. So we've been doing this for quite a while. So we're not new anymore. And I don't know, I'm just thankful for the opportunity to do it because this is why God does not tell you, I think, in advance about the stuff that he wants you to do or the stuff that he has for you to do, because if he told you what he was planning to have you do, we'd say no, and run in the opposite direction, because this is definitely not where I thought I was going to be sitting. Because when I graduated from college, I'm going to show my age. I graduated from college in the mid 1990s, and I got my degree in I have a certificate in education, a teaching certificate, and then I have a bachelor's degree in English. So when I came out of college, I was gung-ho, ready to be a classroom teacher. I taught in the classroom for almost 10 years, had a wonderful time, loved it, got my master's degree in student personnel services and was able to do some guidance counseling and things like that. Got married in the midst of all that, met my husband on a blind date, we got married. And then we had our first child. And after that happened, we had talked and I kind of felt that I wanted to be at home with my firstborn, just to watch her grow and to do all those, fun things and really to just give her the attention that I wanted her to have. And once she got to be 3 or so, we started thinking about education. And there was a preschool co-op in my town. It's kind of like a mommy and me thing where it met a couple days a week for 4 hours or something like that. And you would go and you would take your child and you would sing and play games and do crafts and all that. And that's what we did for a little bit. And then just through the course of hanging out and doing things at home, I could see that, we were having a good time learning. And I said to my husband, I said, I'm not really sure that I'm ready to send her off to school. Not that the district where we lived was bad, but I guess I was having a good time at home, and I was loving to see her learn and grow. And I didn't know anyone who was homeschooling, but I knew that people were, even though I didn't know anyone personally. And so this is how I know it was the Lord. This thought came into my head because it was not my thought. And just homeschooling just came to my mind. And I said, I wonder what would happen if we taught her at home. And so my husband and I talked about it. We prayed about it. And when she was 4, we just started schooling at home, and she learned how to read, and she learned how to do math, and she learned how to do other things. And I was thinking, this is pretty amazing. And so we just started schooling at home, and that was back in like 2008. And here it is, 2022. And we're, wrapping things up. So homeschooling wasn't what I personally intended to do, but my husband and I both feel that it was what the Lord called us to do. So that was the long, short version.
Kind of feel like you fell into homeschooling then, just by mere fact that you enjoyed having your daughter at home.
Yes, I did.
So it wasn't like you weren't leaving the school system. You were already at home, and you were just continuing what you had already begun with her. Just we're having a good time with her.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Awesome. Yeah. And then your other kids, just as you.
My oldest was the only one who really did any type of traditional schooling outside of our home, if you want to count that preschool experience. But the other two, all they've really known is being at home with me and doing their schooling that way. So, and they love it. They think it's great. It's been wonderful for all of us. We're a family of 5, and there's no one in our household who would not be ready to sing the praises of homeschooling, because it's been such a blessing to all of us.
It's wonderful to hear. Okay. That's really good to know, because, so many different families have different stories about how they got into it, and some people struggle with it. And some people are saying this was perfect for us from the beginning. So you're the family that's saying, we love it. We love homeschooling. Yes. This is what we're doing. So over the years, have you noticed the way you teach your kids has shifted or changed in any way, as far as your way of looking at education? Because you're also an educator, as far as your degree was in elementary education.
I have a degree, and it's in English.
In English. Okay. So with that in mind, do you feel that you have a particular philosophy in your home, or did you just kind of grow into whatever works for each child in your home? Like, what is your philosophy?
It's interesting because I spent 4 years in college learning how to teach, learning about pedagogy, learning about child psychology, learning all these things that were useful things. Certainly when I was a classroom teacher, all of those things were helpful and useful. But then I had my own children, and some of those things were still helpful. Most of it was just trial by fire. Yes. if I can be honest, it was just like, I remember, this I remember from, my textbook, but this situation right here, I don't recall any. I'm flipping through books, like asking my husband, what chapter is this in? Because they never talked to us about that. Right. But it's interesting too, though, Demetria, because I feel like sometimes my background, especially in the very beginning of our homeschool journey, my background as a teacher was sometimes, this might not be the right word, it's probably too harsh, but I can't really think of another one. But it was a hindrance sometimes because I was so used to the structure of a classroom. This happens at this time, then we go here, then we go there. This happens at this time always. First period goes from this point to this point, then there's a bell. And so even after my daughter had been home for a while with me, I was still, trained on that schedule and that type of system. So to make the transition to be at home and teach and realize it's 11 o'clock, but she still wants to play math games. I don't have to stop at 11 o'clock. It was weird. And then just trying to think about the fact that, I felt the need to have this homeschool classroom in my house. So I feel like every homeschool mom, when I talk to moms with older kids like you and I have, like we can all remember that stage where we went through, where we had to have that homeschool
You have
classroom.
the desk, you have the flag, you have the whole 9 yards.
So I did that, but then, and it was wonderful while we needed it. And I think there's value in that. I don't want anyone to misunderstand me and think I'm criticizing having a homeschool classroom, because I'm not, because in that certain time frame in our lives, it was good to have that. But then, I remember at the end of the day, cleaning up, putting everything back in its place. And then the next morning, getting kids dressed, feeding them and all that. And we would go down to the basement where our classroom was. And then as they got older, they started to feel like they didn't want to be down in the basement anymore. And it wasn't like the basement was a dungeon or anything like that. I mean, it's a fully finished basement. There's couches. It's a very comfortable space. But as they got to be older, they decided they wanted to school at on the couch, and as they got even older, they decided they wanted to school in their bedrooms. And then the other thing that happened was I realized that I still needed to take care of my house while homeschooling. And I realized it was possible for me to chop vegetables and kind of, keep an eye on the girls while they were doing, whatever it was that they were doing. But that was a big thing for me. Just having to realize that education is education, but the way education is done in a classroom in the traditional sense, where I had been for about 10 years, was completely different than what it looks like at home. So having to make that adjustment for me was challenging. And it was almost like I was bucking against, the system. You know what I mean? The system that I knew would work best at home. But because I had been so indoctrinated by traditional education, it was hard. But once I overcame that, it got a lot easier. And once I started listening to my kids and really seeing what the girls wanted to do and the way they learned best, then things got a lot better. And my stress level went down tremendously.
Okay.
And at the same time, my confidence level went up too.
That's a word in itself. You just said that the fact that you were able to see that there was some indoctrination there from the way public school has to work, because it has to work that way for nurturing that many kids. But at home, living your life, like you said, chopping those vegetables and living your life, doing what you need to do with your kids in the room with you, you can still teach and cook at the same time. It's possible.
That was life-changing.
Yes. And you said that it just kind of took a load off for you and made you more confident and made you more relaxed with homeschooling. So that's important for homeschool moms, new homeschool moms, veteran homeschool moms, but we all need to remember this, that homeschooling is exactly that. It's in your home. And that means your home life should be integrated with what you're doing with your kids.
Exactly.
So that's really good. Thank you for sharing about your journey and the philosophy or your homeschool style. So let's see. I want to know a little bit about your blog, because you have a wonderful resource that a lot of people already know about, but there's some that haven't heard yet. So I want you to talk about your blog and what you do to help homeschool moms.
Okay. So this was back in 2014, which is kind of scary because I'm thinking, wasn't that like last year? But I guess not. Back in 2014, my girls were still on the younger side, and I knew I wanted to touch base and be in contact with fellow Black homeschooling moms, but where I was, there weren't many. And there was a strong homeschool community in my area, which I was grateful for. But I wanted to meet other people in the homeschool space who looked like me. And so I thought, it might be kind of nice to just, reach out by way of social media and see who else is out there. I know I'm not the only Black woman who is homeschooling her kids. And so I just went to Facebook and I started the African American Homeschool Moms Facebook group. And I remember being so excited when it launched that summer. I think it was July, because I had no idea if it was just going to be me and maybe two other people. I had no idea, but I just, I said, I'm going to try. I'm going to see who else is out there, because I know it's not just me. And so at first there were 10 people, and then there were 20 people, and then there were 50 people, and then there were a few hundred people. And so now there's probably about 2,500 moms there, which is a very nice sized community.
Yes.
And after that, then I decided that I wanted to have a website to accompany it. So that's when I created the African American Homeschool Moms website. And so on the website now, there's a lot of evergreen content. In other words, content that really will apply to homeschool families year after year, kind of no matter when it is that you're homeschooling. If you have a small child, there's information there that can be helpful. If you've got a high schooler, there's information there that can be helpful. So I really wanted the website to just serve as a resource. So now there's lots of, one of my most popular pages on the website is this page that I have about Black TED Talks. Where people can go and just, rather than having to search through the TEDx website, I've tried to compile a list of the most popular ones, the most helpful ones there. Lots of field trip ideas, landmarks, things like that. Lots of resources. The blogging content, the posts that are there, like I said, are things that are kind of evergreen. But I wanted there to be kind of a landing space for moms who might not be on social media. And then at the same time, through the Facebook group, I just wanted to be able to have a space where homeschool moms of color could come together, compare notes, talk to one another, meet with one another. And I can honestly say that's one of the things that I love the most just about what has happened with the African American Homeschool Moms Facebook group, because over the years, I've watched moms make friends, form groups of their own in person. We're all women of color and we're homeschooling because our philosophies of education may be different. The resources that we may use might be different, but it was a great place for us to be able to come together and say, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm using. What question do you have? And now it's just a place where people have known one another for years. I mean, when 2024 comes, it'll be, and that seems like right around the corner, it will be 10 years. And some of these moms have been there since the very beginning. So I just really wanted to create a safe place where moms could get together and talk, a helpful space where moms could share resources. And since its inception, it's been that kind of place. The moms there are wonderful. They're knowledgeable. They're helpful. They're kind. Sometimes people think that when you get onto Facebook and these social media groups, there's a lot of arguing and a lot of chaos and a lot of craziness. And we've all had that experience where you join a Facebook group and you're like, what in the world is going on here? But African American moms, homeschool moms, has never been like that. So that was what my goal was. And again, I love the sharing of resources. That makes me happy. But what I love even more than that is the fact that women have come together and are journeying, together. I think that's how I met you. Like, I had known about your site before, but once we came together in African American Homeschool Moms, that's when things really took off, for us. So that's what I like about it.
And I am a personal testimony to the African American Homeschool Moms Facebook group, because there have been many times I've had questions about curriculum. I've had questions about, with my daughters aging, into high school and college, I've had those high school questions, and there've always been moms that have asked questions before I got around to it. So I just do a search on your Facebook group. So many answers, so many helpful answers from wisdom from moms who have been there, done that, and they are so supportive. They just pour out and share and help and provide links and resources. And it's just amazing. So I love that you provided this platform. And I think it starts with great leaders like yourself to, create that space that's safe that way. And like you said, there's no bickering, there's none of the, the things that we try to stay away from on social media. This is just a really resourceful group. So I'm definitely going to link to that. We need to have that on the show notes, and also your website, which is African American Homeschool Moms.com. It's a great resource. So thank you for providing that. It has been a while. I'm glad that you're still doing this. So now I want to know, okay, so we talked a little bit about how you got started with homeschooling. Today, does your homeschool look extremely different than it did? I'm sure it does, but does it look very different in terms of maybe the way you view home education and how you present material to your children? They're no longer little, so I'm assuming things have evolved for you, but how different are things now than they were when they were younger?
It's weird because you think that 13 years, in some respects, 13 years isn't a long time. Like when I think about the fact that I started with a kindergartner and now my oldest is on the way to college, that's not a long time. Like those years flew by really, really quickly. And I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know, because I know looking at your Facebook page, I'm thinking, wait, she graduated? Like she's on her way to how did that happen already? But then at the same time, when you think about the way education changes and things like that, sometimes that can be a slow process. I laugh because my older two, who are 17 and 15, they tell me all the time that their youngest sister does not have the same homeschooling mom that they had. And they say that for things outside of homeschooling too, and because you've got kids like that. Yeah. When I was that age, Mom, you never let me do thus and so.
Oh my goodness, yes, I hear that every day.
you let her do this, and when we were that age, this was a big no in our house. But I feel like it's one of those things too, which again speaks to education. Each one of our kids is different.
Yes.
So the things that they needed back in, early 2000s, mid 2000s is different than what my youngest needs now in 2020. But things are really, really different. Like I look back at pictures of what our house looks like I told you, with the classroom and all, and the way things were set up and all of that. It's a different landscape out there now, and it's a good kind of different. But at the same time, I think it's easy to become overwhelmed because there is so much out there, and sometimes I kind of I feel old when I say this, like I feel like my grandmother, but sometimes I yearn for like when things were a little more simple, and a time when you didn't have so much choice. It's kind of like when that experience when you go to the supermarket and you just need a box of cereal, right? But then you get to the cereal aisle and there's like yards and yards and yards of boxes that are like all kinds of colors, all kinds of flavors and all that. That sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming, but at the same time, it's cool because you can say, you know what, I don't want to eat the same cereal I had before. I want to try this new box of cereal over here. And it's nice to be able to do that. So the way I teach my kids is different, but that's always been the case because each one of my girls is different. And so throughout that homeschool journey, I've had to look and see, okay, this one learns this way. This one learns this way. So I remember when I first started, it was kind of like, okay, this is the math series that we're going to use. And I've spent $200 on this math series. And you best believe everybody in the house is using that series because I paid $200 for this.
I know the feeling.
But then you start teaching and you realize this series is good for this child, but it's not good for the next one coming up. And then by the time the third one came, there was an even better series.
Right.
So you kind of learn how to just, you kind of learn how to adjust like that, because like I said before, there's so much choice. But, the philosophy that I have is the same. We've always been very eclectic type of homeschoolers. I'm not that kind of person who has ever gone and bought a prepackaged curriculum and said, here it is.
Mhm.
This is what we're using. Generally speaking, math comes from here, science comes from over here, social studies comes from over here. This, we kind of grab whatever it is that works for us and we use it that way. The availability, the ease of use to get resources has been is better, but the way that I teach them and I approach them, their learning styles in particular is the same thing. But at the same time, as they age, they change up. This, things are a little bit different. So sometimes I'm thinking, okay, this is going to work best for her based on what we did last year. But then when a new school year comes, we get through some things and I'm thinking, okay, they'll come to me and say, you know what? I thought this was going to work. You thought it was going to work. It's not working. What are we going to do? So then, you go through and you change, but again, there's the blessing of homeschooling, because if you're in the traditional classroom,
Yep.
whatever book it is that they pick, that's the one you're stuck with, and you have to make the best of it. So just the biggest change that I think I've seen is just the vast amount of resources there. And, Belinda,
Yes.
from A Blessed Heritage.
Oh, yes.
Her resources have been wonderful too. I did not know about her resources when my kids were small. It was only once my girls got to middle school that I realized she has this whole awesome curriculum that speaks to me as a writer and a reader. So we could do that. Those type of things, come together. So then I didn't have to sit there and put together a book list, because this wonderful woman who knows much more than I do, she put this list together. Belinda has done all the work. So now I can just go pay for her marvelous curriculum, use what she's had to do. And that's the other thing. I've learned that I don't have to do it all, Demetria. Like I don't have to be in the trenches all the time, because there are other people who know more than me and have information and resources that are great too. So
Yes.
I'm not sure if that answered your question.
No, you did. And you covered so much there. It was good. Like, yes, I love that. Thank you. I feel like there's so much to glean from what you just said, but the curriculum overload, the overwhelm from choices is definitely an issue now. There's so much. So it's good to be able to simplify, or to go to someone who's already done it. Like we said, Belinda Bullard, she's already done it. She is now helping us. She's passing the torch. She has the curriculum. And so we don't have to go reinvent the wheel. And if we don't want to, some people do,
Right.
Some people want to, and that's fine. But there's some of us who are just like, I really don't know where to start. And if you don't know where to start to create your, maybe it's a unit study you're looking for, there are so many homeschool moms who've already done that and created it and provided. So that's one thing, is to find something that really works for your children. Try to stick with that, and don't be attracted to all the bells and the whistles. There's so much out there. It can be so overwhelming, but to find what works. And like you said, with your children, you found what works for each one. Like you said, mathematics, like maybe it works for one kid, but then the second one, maybe you needed something different. And then by the time the third one came along, it's like that was no longer needed. So looking at it from individually to see what each child needs. So important. So thank you for that. Now, I guess I want to know a little bit about, so we're going to talk about challenges, and so pros and cons. So challenges if you're homeschooling, and things that you feel are beneficial to your homeschool. But we're going to start with the challenges, things that you wish were different. We all have those. For me, I probably have about 5, but just however many that you want to share with us, what are some of those challenges in your homeschool?
I'm laughing because you said you have 5, right? So over here, I have another screen open and I have a list because I didn't want to forget anything, because I think sometimes people think when you start home, we all start homeschooling wide-eyed and full of wonder, and we have all of these big plans, and it's great to have all of those things. But then when some things happen, it's easy to get discouraged. And the one thing I wrote down first was, it's interesting to note that the challenges are different depending on where you are. In the beginning of the homeschool journey, when I had littles, the big thing was, how do I teach on multiple levels? How do I teach this one while this one is over here? And then I remember when my youngest was born, I had, I was nursing, trying to teach this grade while doing that. And that certainly can be a challenge. But now that they're older, I've got 2 high schoolers and a middle schooler now. And the challenge for us is keeping everybody motivated, especially at this time of the year. I have a senior, and a couple weeks ago, she came to me and she said, "Mom, I'm done." And I was like, "What do you mean you're done?" She's like, "I am finished. Like, I cannot do this anymore." And it's, part of that was because it's senior year. You're working on your college applications. You're trying, she has a job. She's doing extracurricular things. And it was, it was a lot. And so I constantly had to say to her and to my sophomore, "Look, and I'm teaching online classes myself. So I definitely feel where you're coming from. But that's the challenge for us now, just saying, okay, we're we're linking arms. And all of us are going to cross the finish line together. Now, we might not look pretty when we cross the checkered line. We all might not look beautiful, but we're going to cross the line. So that was that one thing, just keeping my kids motivated, because there's so many things I feel like that these young people have to do and are being held responsible for, and then just keeping myself motivated, because if I said to them, "Well, you know what, I don't care, I'm going to fall off the wagon too," you can't do that. Somebody's got to be there to keep people motivated. Yeah. So that was one challenge that just immediately came to my mind recently. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that's happened over the course of several years is something that's a little bit more personal, I think, and I know a lot of moms will recognize this, just not being able to lose who you are personally while you're homeschooling. It's homeschooling is a full-time job, and only over the past 2 years, and if we talk about the pandemic, we can kind of touch on this too, but only over the past 2 years have I really found time to do me. And I'm not talking about going to the spa or getting my nails done or anything like that, but just really finding time to think about the things that I like to do. Finding time for me to be able to teach other kids besides my own, which is something that I did before I had my kids, but it's something the Lord has opened up a door for me to be able to do now. So I'm doing that. Being able to write a couple children's books, it's something that I've wanted to do for a really, really long time. And I was finally able to do that. I found time I've always been interested in doing grant writing. So I just finished a grant writing course online. So just being able to find the time for me to do those things for me, knowing that was what helped keep me sane. Mm-hmm. Because even if we're talking, like, let's throw homeschooling out of the equation for a minute, just mothering, it's hard to be who you are while you're caring for somebody else. So just making sure that I wasn't losing myself homeschooling was a challenge. The other thing, and you kind of touched on this a little bit sooner, but I wanted to mention this. The homeschool community is a very noisy space now. And I don't mean that in necessarily a negative light, but I feel that when we first started homeschooling, it wasn't as, I don't know, noisy is just the best word that I can use to describe it. There's just so many people who are telling you need to do this. I'm offering this. I have this. It's kind of like the Las Vegas experience. You know what I mean? There's lights flashing here and this curriculum there, and this person who says she knows what's best, and this person who knows how to do it. This person is a guru. This person is an expert. And if we are not careful, we will get sucked into that and not meet the needs of our own children because we're too busy trying to chase after what other people are doing. And I talked to a mom the other day who wanted to chat, and she came to me with this list, and she was like, "Well, what do you know about this curriculum? And what do you know about this person? And she says she's doing this, and this one has this book, and this one is offering this service." And I mean, I felt so bad for this mom. Her oldest was in 3rd grade. And this is what she's trying to navigate, right now. So knowing knowing what to kind of set aside and knowing what to take. My grandmother would say the importance of chewing the meat, right, and spitting out the bones.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know what's going to nourish your homeschool, but you also need to know that's cool for somebody else. It's not going to work for my kids right now, and it's okay. And not feel guilty because most people are using this curriculum, but you're over here using this. That's, just trying to navigate that noisy, crowded sometimes homeschool space can be a challenge.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that's definitely an issue. And I think I would describe it the same way. Noisy. It could be extremely confusing. And for those who are just entering the homeschool landscape, I'm praying for you. It's just it's a lot to navigate. So just, we need to find, first know who our kids are. First, get to know our children, get to know our family. What is our family philosophy? What are we trying to accomplish for our children? And then after we really understand what our kids need, then it's just finding those materials that are going to meet those needs for our children. And it could be something so simple. It doesn't have to be the $500 curriculum package. So finding moms to talk to who have gone before and already done that is great, especially people you know and trust, because like you said, there's a lot of noise out there and there's voices everywhere that are claiming everything. So it's really important just to find people that you trust, and you've been watching those people and you see how they've raised their kids and what they're doing. You can ask for advice, and you don't have to use what they're using, but just getting that support from others who have gone through what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that's important. So thank you for bringing that up. I mean, it's definitely very noisy, and we need to be able to navigate all of that. But go ahead. I'm sorry, you were sharing.
You were talking about finding people that you can trust. Mm-hmm. I know it's really in these days to talk about, finding your tribe, finding your group. Mm-hmm. And there is a place for big Facebook groups, and there is a place for large homeschool gatherings. But for me personally, I'm an extrovert. I will say that. But I'm also a pretty private person too. I like to have a small group of friends. And the women that God has placed in my life who are doing that homeschool journey with me, there's not a lot of them. There are probably 4 that I will sit down and talk to and be raw with, and those are the women who know me well. They love me. They care about my family. They care about they value education just the way I do. And they pray for me, and they encourage me, and they don't judge me. And that's, for me, that's been a lifesaver. If I need to call somebody, because there are women, there are names I could call right now of people who have talked me off a ledge, especially in this college application process. That was testing some relationships over in our house for a minute. But those were the women who I called and said, look, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. This is what this says I'm supposed to do. This is what this says I'm supposed to do. This is what my homeschooler wants to do. This is what I want to do. This is what my husband is thinking about. And those were the women. It wasn't in the big Facebook group with thousands of people. Right. Those were the women who said, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pray. And they prayed with me, and they listened to me, and they didn't say, well, you should know that. You've been homeschooling for 13 years. Why don't you know it? Wow. These were women who said, look, this is stressful. I can see why you're stressed. Let's talk about it. Or they would let me cry when I felt inadequate or felt like I was overwhelmed, because I don't know everything, and I will be the first person to say that I don't. But for me, when you talked about finding people that you could trust, that's just life-changing, because you can't do it by yourself. You have to be able to find people that you can travel with. But I will tell you this too, Demetria, and I think you'll understand this too. Excuse me. You have to be willing to be vulnerable.
That's so true.
You can't, at least for me, I can't be the person who's always like, oh, well, of course I know best because I've been homeschooling and I have a degree in this, and that. These kids will humble you. Yes. Homeschooling has humbled me tremendously. And those women in that group that I have, those 4 strong, close friends, those ladies are my life support and my system. And those are the folks that keep me going. So, sometimes I look online and I see these women and there's like 25, 30 women deep, and it's cool. If that's what you need and that's what works for you, I'm all for it. It's difficult for me to feel comfortable among that many people. And I remember specifically in my homeschool journey early on praying, Lord, please send me some like-minded people who can help me, but at the same time, I can encourage too, because it goes both ways. I never want to be, just that person who's always taking. Right. I want to be able to give to people too. Beautiful. And that, that's helpful too, but not give in a way that comes off as superior. Right. Or knowing the best. This group of friends that I have, this homeschooling group that I have bonded with, we all are of the same philosophy. We never want to be the smartest people in the room. That's never. Awesome. We always want to be learning from one another. Right. And it doesn't even have to be, I have one of my good friends, she has littles, but sometimes her perspective with having littles reminds me of the focus that I should have even with my older ones. So when you mention that trust factor, to me, that's crucial.
I love that. That's another word. You're just dropping these nuggets everywhere. Okay, this is so good. Yes. So what you said, there's so many things you said, but you said you prayed. You proactively sought the Lord for a group of women, small, but intimate, and people that you can trust to walk this journey with you. I think that is of paramount importance because there are a lot of people out there that are homeschooling, but not everybody can walk the journey with you. And so that's something that I find I can count on one hand how many people I have in my space, and I don't let too many people in because, like you said, it's that, are we on the same page? Is there some type of hierarchical thing going on within the group? Because we want to make sure we're all here to give to each other, to support one another, and nobody's taking from anybody and nobody's superior. And we're all helping each other. So it's important to pray for these connections in our life. Very important, because we don't want to do it by ourselves. It can be very isolating and lonely if you're on your own. So that's really good. Thank you for sharing that. Did you have any other challenges you wanted to share with homeschooling?
Let me look. I'm looking at my handy dandy list here. No, the ones that I mentioned were the big things that popped up right away.
That's so helpful. Most of us have experienced these challenges also. And so thank you for helping us feel like we're not the only ones. That's so good. And then now we're going to talk about what are some of the benefits. What are some of the reasons you feel like homeschooling has been the best choice by far, that you could have placed your kids in school? You could have had all this free time, but you chose to devote your time and your life to educating your kids, keeping them in a safe environment and teaching them and raising them according to how you and your family deem appropriate. And it takes time and energy and effort to do this. So what were the benefits of having done that all these years?
Don't you? I feel like you can roll out a scroll and all the benefits will come, going across the room on this long scroll, because there's so many of them. But the first thing is, it's so beneficial to our family. And I think the biggest benefit has been among my girls, just watching their relationship. Now, let me give the caveat there. It's not like everybody's over here holding hands, singing Kumbaya all the time.
Right.
I'd be most untruthful if I told you that every day was duckies and bunnies and sunshine and rainbows over here, because, kids argue, they fall out, they disagree, but they have no choice but to be able to work things out because, they're all here. But watching my oldest, who is 17, work with her sister, who is 10, and go through some things and show her how to do things, just that fostering of relationship among my kids has been, has just been a blessing. And I can't say whether the bond among them would be as strong if they were in a traditional school. I personally don't think it would have been. But there's benefit in being able to say, have my oldest say, oh yeah, I've done this already. Let me show you how to do it. I see you're frustrated about this. Let me show you what you can do, because there are times when I'm busy with another one of my girls, and I can say, hey, can you go, it sounds like your sister's struggling with this. I can't get to her right this second. See if you can help her. But what has happened too is that as they've gotten older, I don't even have to say that anymore. One girl can say, oh, it looks like she's struggling, and they don't even come to me and say, I'm going to go help. They will go off. They will go off and do it. So just the relationship building among the girls is just, that's been a blessing to me. And the other thing is teaching what we want to teach, the way we want to teach it, when we want to teach it. It doesn't get any better than that, because I remember distinctly, I was teaching 6th grade math in a classroom, and I had 20 something kids, maybe 22, 23 kids in that math class. And I remember there were some kids who were ready for chapter 8 and I was only in chapter 6. And there were kids who were, I'm teaching chapter 6, but they really still needed help with concepts from chapter 4. And I remember running around, having these kids on this rug back here. I remember teaching my full lesson, running over here, then to teach the group that was ahead, then coming over here to help these kids who, were still needing some assistance, but at the same time trying to keep everybody on track. Right. I don't have to do that. Like that's the blessing, because I can say, okay, if there's something that the girls know and they master it pretty quickly, we're moving on. But there are other times when, we have learned over the years that long division is called long division for a reason. And it took us a long time over here to master long division. But I just remember thinking one day with my oldest, this is probably what we're going to probably be working on for the next week or so. But I remember thanking God that she wasn't in a regular classroom where I was under the gun, like crunch time was coming and we had to have this skill mastered by this time. We could take our time and be able to do it. So teaching them, going fast when they need to go fast is awesome, but being able to pull back and say, okay, we need to take a couple weeks on this. It took one of my girls a good 2.5 weeks, almost 3, to master long division. In the traditional classroom, that would have been like 2 chapters worth of, stuff. But wow. I didn't have to do that because of the way that things were done at home. And again, just the word that keeps resonating that you mentioned before is trust. My kids trust me when coming to me with all kinds of stuff, because I know, again, it's a big thing in the homeschool community to say my kid is, super smart. She's working on these projects. She's doing this. She's running over here. She's running there. But I've dealt with kids in my homeschool who are like, look, I'm just trying to deal with this one thing right here, Mom, and I can't get it. And having to be able to say to them, it doesn't matter what your friend in co-op is doing. It doesn't matter what these folks in the Facebook group are doing. Right. We're doing what we're doing over here, and God is giving us what we need to get done, what we need to get done. And just a safe place for these kids to come and be vulnerable and say, I can't do this, Mom, and I'm feeling bad about myself about it. And me saying, you know what, I can understand why you're struggling. I'm sorry that you're struggling. Let's figure out what we can do together to help. And watching them overcome and then go on to the next thing and do that next thing, with confidence. Yeah. And also, Demetria, them being able to see, and to me, this is beyond valuable, my kids being able to see that I don't know everything. Because there were times where my kids would be, especially as they got to high school and stuff, and their math level surpassed mine. My husband is an engineer. He's got a master's degree in aerospace engineering. So literally, like, we laugh and we say he's a rocket scientist. But being able to say, you know what, you're gonna have to go see your dad about that one, because I don't know, and it's gonna take me a lot of time to research. You're gonna have to wait for me to research it, teach it to myself, and then figure out how to teach it to you. Being able to say, I don't know, but let's find out about it together. It lets my girls know, you know what, mom she doesn't mind being vulnerable in front of us. And that, to me, out of all the, you can do book lessons and all that, but being able to see your parents as human, as people who make mistakes,
right.
That's been a benefit too, because, like, I know there have been times where I've taught something and my girls will be like, I know mom's going to do it differently this time. Because don't you remember what happened that time when she tried to show us how to do X and it turned out this way? It was a hot mess and we had to turn around and do it again. We laugh about it, but I've learned. And so now with my youngest, I can do things a little bit differently, but they evolve and they get to see me evolve too. So I like that as well. But I'm going to stop there with the benefits, because if not, we'll be talking for like 2 more hours. But
no, this is good, because there are so many, like you said, you can just roll them out on the scroll. There's so many benefits. But those are some of the key benefits, though, that you just mentioned. So the freedom that our kids have to go at their own pace. That's probably my number one thing with homeschooling is it is at their own pace. And I really love that you mentioned the whole comparison thing, because that's always a pet peeve for me. I hate to see our kids comparing themselves with the kids in the co-op, the kids down the street, the other kids who homeschool at the church. What is this family doing? What are they doing? And my kids were so different. I mean, all of our kids are different from each other, but like my kids didn't want to do a lot of the things that kids in our former homeschool co-op were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I just had to encourage them, like, it's okay. You don't have to want that lifestyle. You don't have to want to have that extracurricular activity be your thing because all the kids in the homeschool co-op are doing that thing. You don't have to be excellent at all these subjects. You just need to work hard. You just need to learn at your own pace, and you need to try to master the material, but you don't have to compare yourself to other students. So that's so important. And I think you mentioned something else that really popped out at me, but it'll come back to me in a minute. It was good though. It was good. So, oh my goodness, so much. What about favorite homeschool curriculum? You've used a lot. You've been homeschooling for a while, so I'm sure you've used quite a few curriculum. What are some of your favorite resources? And if you have some multicultural resources that you want to mention, or just anything that really stands out to you in your home that your kids have loved, that stand the test of time, things that you really enjoy.
Now, I'm not the math science person. I've never been a math science person. I'm a literature, history, liberal arts type of person. So math and science kind of, go all over the place. But I as far as our favorite curriculum, it's weird because I don't have a favorite one. Like, I know people who, are like, oh my gosh, I must have this. But most of the time I don't have a favorite curriculum.
Okay.
But I will say that Belinda Bullard's things at A Blessed Heritage are wonderful. I have used her materials before, and those are all at the top of some of the things that are at the top of my list. But you know what? One of my favorite resources is the library.
Yeah.
That's where we get a lot of stuff. I love talking to the librarians at our library. They know my family by name. They know all of my kids. They know the dirty secrets of all the terrible fines that we've racked up over the course of 13 years, and they don't judge us for them. But the library has been a great resource for us because there's so many educational materials there. There are so many programs that our library has had. And there's just so many books. Like that, to me, books are the best resource we've had. And especially when you start talking now about the wonkiness of history and, some of the history that's being taught that, really isn't accurate. I tell my girls frequently, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go find so-and-so's, autobiography.
Okay.
I like to read from the people themselves. I
Mhm.
want to hear directly from, whenever possible, from that person and hear what their experiences are. And I remember when I was writing the Jackie Robinson book for kids, it was
Uh-huh.
really weird when that opportunity came. And I know it was the Lord, because only like 2 months prior to that, I had just finished reading his autobiography, like on my own. And
Mhm.
so when somebody came and said, we want you to consider telling his story to children, I
Wow.
felt confident to be able to do it, because I didn't read what somebody else said about Jackie Robinson. I didn't read what this person who said they talked to Jackie Robinson said. I was able to get his own story and his own words. So then, when you're ready, when you encounter something that doesn't sound right, that seems a little bit off, then we have the discernment to be able to say, that's not right. Because this is what the person experienced themselves. This is what the person has told us. This is what history says actually happened. And knowing, being able to know that. So to me, the best resource that we have is just books. If I can, and even books, Demetria, that I don't agree with. I always too try to read books from perspectives that, are different from mine. So
Yeah.
at least I know what's out there. So
Uh-huh.
I know how to counter those things
I
too.
love that.
So I'm not one to just not read a book because it offends somebody or bothers somebody. I read it because I want to be able to have discussion about it, not with just my kids, but with other people in general. And if I haven't read what everyone else has read, I'm not going to be able to talk about it. So
That's
I want to be
educating yourself so you have all sides of it. Yeah.
exactly. So we can be able to, say things. I will say, too, my kids know I'm a grammar person. I'm that person who, I remember sitting in fourth grade diagramming sentences and thinking that it was the most wonderful thing in the world, and
Wow.
going out to recess and having all my other friends complain about how awful the teacher was because she was making us diagram. But I'm very into, grammar. I'm very into, those practical type of things. So if I spend money on stuff, generally speaking, it's money on writing type of things. It's money on grammar, those type of things too. Now I mean, that's not to say we don't spend money on math and science, because certainly those things are important. But when I go to look for curriculum, the things that my husband will be like, are you still looking at grammar books? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. It's
Because you
been
love,
2 weeks,
yeah.
but that's what I like. Writing curriculum. I'm like, okay, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? The engineer that I know and love is like, look, whatever you choose is fine with me. But I have kids. I know I have children. All three of my girls, they write, and they like to tell stories, and they like to read. So I can already see the gifts that God has put into them. So I feel that it's my responsibility to give them things that will help them develop those things. But I'm not beholden to any specific curriculum. If it works, I'll use it.
Yes.
And
Right.
if it doesn't work the next year, I won't use it.
Yes.
So,
That is an excellent perspective. Just use what works. That's what
yes.
I know. I love that. So, okay, I definitely want to hear about your books, but we're gonna get to that in a minute, because I have to hear about that. But I want you to give out some words of encouragement before we talk about your blog. I want to know how, because you've already given us so much to glean from, but how are homeschool moms who are brand new to this homeschool landscape where it's very noisy, how can brand new homeschool moms receive some type of encouragement, a word of advice that will help them to push past all the noise and figure out what's best for their families? What are some words of encouragement you have for them?
The first thing we do in our house is, seriously, we pray. I mean, that's just, I can't do any of this on my own. My husband can't. We pray, because we know that God is the one who's given us these children, and he knows them best. And so we pray and we ask for wisdom. We pray about everything. We pray about curriculum. We pray about how the information is being taught. We pray about the community that we choose to be a part of. And we pray for them to be among people who are going to bring out the best in them. So that's the first thing I say. I mean, we are people of faith. We're believers. And so for us, prayer is paramount. That's what we do. And I could tell you stories, Demetria, just about seeing the Lord move in the lives of our family because we took the time to pray. We've watched him open up doors for our family, and we've watched him close doors too. And that closing of doors, I will say, has not always been comfortable, but when he opens the door, we are always thankful that we prayed and did what he led us to do. So for us, you know, that's what I would encourage people to do. Just pray about it. And then the other thing is take time to enjoy your kids because it goes by really, really quickly. I'm at a place right now where in 5 months, not even 3 months, 2 months, my oldest is going to be out of my house. And, you know, all of those things that my husband and I spent pouring into her over these past 17, almost 18 years, that's what she's going to take out with her when she goes. You know, math is important, science is important, but those relationships that you have with your kids, I don't want to get choked up, but I can't even tell you how important it is to do that. You know, I've heard people say that the days are long, and it's true, but I've also heard people say that the years are short. They go by really, really quickly. Enjoy your kids, and not just when they're tiny, enjoy them at every single stage, because I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I have an infant. I love having an infant, but then I would hear people talk about the terrible twos, and I would get worried about the terrible twos. But then 2 and 3 and 4 came, and I was like, I love this stage too. And then, of course, I heard people say, oh, you might be liking this stage, but wait till they get to middle school and puberty and all that. And then puberty came, and I was like, okay, we've got this. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't without its problems, but we enjoyed that time. And now I'm in the process where I have a young adult, and she's, you know, making her own decisions and she's doing her own things. And I'm enjoying that place too, because that's when my husband and I get to see that all the lessons that we taught, all the prayers that we prayed, all that stuff that we poured into her, we're getting ready to see the fruits of. Enjoy your kids at whatever stage that they are in and listen to them. Like, I can't say enough about that too. You know, even the stuff that they tell you that you think is like silly or not of consequence. And we've all listened to our kids tell us things, and we're like, inside of our heads, well, Lord have mercy, that doesn't really seem like a big deal to me, but it's a big deal to them. And I'm thankful that I took the time to listen and hear what they had to say, because now my kids know, as older ones, that I will listen to them. And they feel comfortable. I'm so thankful for that. And I'm not saying my girls are perfect, right? But they will come to me with big things and say, Mom, I need to talk to you about this. You know, this isn't going to make you happy, Mom, but I need to tell you this. And we've navigated those things as a family because we've cultivated that in our house. Enjoy your kids, listen to your kids. And then you mentioned this too. Don't feel like you have to listen to experts out there. Because I'm always wary when I hear someone say that they're an expert, because you might be an expert in that area, but I can't even embrace this fully. I was going to say that I'm an expert in my own children, but I'm not. You know, I'm learning with them constantly, but I know that my job is to learn about them and not necessarily what's popular in the homeschool community, what's trendy in the homeschool community, because I've seen some really, really good things out there that are popular, and I think they're awesome. And I'm glad that that opportunity exists, but it doesn't work for my kids in my house. So I would just caution people, be careful about who you listen to. You know, really be careful about who it is that you choose to listen to. And then take care of yourself. This is a lesson that a lot of us have to learn the hard way. You know, I'm coming off of a few months of theater with my girls. They had a major production, and we're tired. Like we were doing our schooling during the day and then they would have to leave at 3 and we would all need to be there and we weren't getting home until 11 o'clock at night, but we still had to get up at, in the early morning and do stuff. And we were tired and our eating was awful. We looked bad. The house was in disarray, and I finally got to that place where I was like, we're not going to be able to live like this. I have to take care of myself. And there are times where you're going to kind of have to pull away. I think about Jesus, people were clamoring to talk to him all the time, but there were times where Jesus was like, y'all gonna have to sit down and wait because I need to be in the garden praying. Right. I need to be over here in my boat where it's quiet. Sometimes you just have to pull away. And if we've invested, then things probably won't fall apart. And if they do, because things have fallen apart at my house too, it's not the end of the world. Like you can recover, and you have to give yourself grace too. You will make mistakes because I'm still making them. I made a big one today and, have to scramble after we're done talking to see how I'm going to fix things, but it's going to be okay. Take care of yourself and be nice to yourself. Recognize that it's not going to always be perfect. We talked about the importance of finding those friends. Don't feel like you have to find a group with 5 million people in it. If the Lord gives you one good friend, and I've told this to my girls, having one good friend is better than having a group of 10. If he gives you that one good friend you can confide in, that one good friend who supports you and encourage you, be thankful for that and move on. And you mentioned this too, not competing. Because it's weird, Demetria, we'll tell our kids not to compete, don't compete. But then as moms, we're kind of like, well, what's she doing over there? Yeah. Should I be doing that too? And I guess I've just gotten to a place in my life now. Part of it is because I'm getting close to 50 and there's some freedom that comes with aging. I do not care. You know what I mean? Like, I'm serious, Demetria. I'm like, well, look, if it's working for you and that floats your boat, that's fine. As for me, I may pick up my needle and move to a different group. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how it's working over here. You and I are on the same page here. Don't compete. Don't feel like you have to do what every other mom is doing. You know what you have to do? What's best for the kids that God's given you.
That's right.
And it's going to look different. So enjoy your children, listen to your children. Don't feel like you have to listen to experts. Navigate that space carefully. Take care of yourself. Find some friends and don't compete. That's just, and I would love, Demetria, if I had learned all those lessons like in October of 2008, man, I would be setting the world on fire. I would be like so different. But again,
you had to learn.
Growth. Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's growth and it's learning. And I'm thankful for those lessons that were painful. Because you don't learn. Growth is not, you know what I'm saying? Growth is not pleasant all the time. No. But I'm thankful for all those hard times that I had to navigate because it's made me a better homeschool mom and a better parent and just a better person in general. And the other thing, Demetria, I feel the need to say this, be nice. Yeah. Be nice to people.
Yes.
Be nice. My group, I honestly can say, I have not seen this in my group, but be kind to people. There's just, it's easy to fall into condescending behavior and kind of look down on other people. Right. Be nice to people. Amen. Be kind. You don't know what people are struggling with. You don't know what people are dealing with. Be nice to people.
Without saying, it seems that should be such a norm within within faith-based homeschooling, especially. It should be a norm. But thank you for saying that. We have to be kind. We have to be nice to each other. We should not be judgy and condescending because we're hurting more people than we realize. Even some people that are like, oh, that's just my personality. I just say what I think. Yeah, but you could be really cutting someone's heart. So thank you for saying that. Kindness goes a long way in homeschooling. Very important. Well, you've just given me so much. And that goes for new homeschool moms, veteran homeschool moms, all of us. Those are some key points. You gave us 5, I believe. I think. So wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And
You're
I
welcome.
want to know about your books. You wrote some books. Like, how many did you write? Tell us about them, where we can get them.
So this is, I don't know, it's just so, it blows my mind to see where God will, the paths that he has. Because in my life, I feel like this is point A, this is point B, and the road from A to B is going to look like this, but instead it's like all over the place.
All over the place.
But I don't know. Everything for me started when my kids were, I don't know, I had like elementary school kids, and I was looking for ways to, just maintain conversation with my girls. We always have talked, but I knew I had writers and I knew my kids liked to write. So I remember we took this composition book, my oldest and I, and we would just write notes to one another in it. And, sometimes it would be just a note where I remember my daughter was playing violin, and the violin is a very difficult instrument to learn. And there were some days where she'd be kind of, frustrated and discouraged. And I would write a note in the black and white composition book and say, hey, I can tell that, violin is really, really hard for you today, but I'm proud of the way, you just push through with your lesson. It doesn't have to sound perfect. I just want you to know, just keep pressing and it'll get better. And then I would leave a knock knock joke and I would put it in her room. She would read it and she would write a note back to me and she would leave it right over there on my dresser next to my bed. And so I would write her another note and I would leave it in her room and we would just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I could pull that notebook out of my drawer right now, but it was such a beautiful memory to see those written words and just to look. And after a while, I thought that'd be kind of neat if other people had something like that. And so I came up with the idea of this parent-child journal called Sharing Our Thoughts. And it was just, but when I did it, I always wanted to make sure that I was incorporating the Lord. I want to give honor to him in every single thing that I do, because I do nothing without him. And I thought about all the Bible stories and all the things that my husband and I had taught the girls over the years. So I split the journal into different sections. And one of them is, about how you're fearfully and wonderfully made, like our appearance. And another section is about, just about our image. And another section is about education. And so there's a Bible story that, something biblical that goes in each section. And then I have questions there that both the parent and the child can answer. So that was the first one. Sharing our thoughts.
And then I've used that one with my daughter. Love it.
I appreciate it. The funny thing is, I have not used it with my last one. I'm getting ready to go off to a conference in a couple of weeks, and here I am packing up this box of books to take with me. And the other day I was like, I have not done this with my youngest, and this is the perfect time. So we're getting ready to start it together.
That's awesome.
But after that opportunity, a publisher came to me and said, hey, we see that you're a teacher. We see that, you enjoy children, that you write for children. Would you consider, writing a children's book for us about Jackie Robinson?
The publisher just came to you.
Yeah, just came to me because they had seen the African American Homeschool Moms website, saw the stuff that was there, and the publisher came and said, I was minding my business, and it was in the midst of COVID, minding my business, like that, and I got an email one day. And so that was that. But I knew, as I told you before, I knew that opportunity had come from the Lord, because I had I'm not even kidding, Demetria, like 8 weeks before, just finished up Jackie Robinson's autobiography. I think it's called I Never Had It Made. And I had just finished reading it for my own personal enjoyment. And these folks came to me and said, hey, and so because I knew it would be a nonfiction children's book, you want to make sure that you're writing accurate information, but I felt prepared because I had just read his story. So that one is called The Story of Jackie Robinson. And these books are for kids elementary school age. And so there was that one. And then they came to me not too long after and said, hey, would you consider writing the story of Katherine Johnson? So I did that one, and that one came out earlier this year or late last year. But those are the three books: Sharing Our Thoughts, the Bible-based parent-child journal, The Story of Jackie Robinson, and then The Story of Katherine Johnson. Those are the three books.
Wonderful. We're going to leave links for these. Now, are these on Amazon or your website? How can
They're not on my website, but you can get them on Amazon. Amazon is usually the easiest place to, get everything. So they're for sale on Amazon too.
I'm sure we want to read these. We want to read these books to our kids.
I do have the Facebook group. And then in a couple weeks, my family and we are going down to North Carolina. I'm going to do some presentations at the North Carolina Home Educators Conference there. So we will be down in North Carolina on the 26th, 27th, and 28th of May. So if you happen to be in the area, come by,
come on out,
say hi to me, wave.
Will you be speaking?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be doing three workshops there.
Oh, wow. So. Okay, that's awesome. Okay.
Yes.
So I hope.
And then if someone wants, if you feel so led to reach out to me elsewhere, you can always send me an email at Andrea@AfricanAmericanHomeschoolMoms.com. So you can email me through the website as well.
Okay. AfricanAmericanHomeschoolMoms.com, Andrea@AfricanAmericanHomeschoolMoms.com.
And there's a contact page there too, if you can't remember.
Lots of information there. Well, you have been such a source of peace and inspiration to us. You brought a lot to the table today. I'm still processing all of this encouragement from you. Very rich stuff. So thank you so much for being with me and for sharing your homeschool world with the rest of us who are also homeschooling, and we appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I always feel honored. When I saw an email with your name on it, I was like, oh my goodness, it's my friend Dimitri. I was so excited. I didn't even know what you were asking me, but I just saw your name and was very excited. So,
awesome. Yes. Thank you.
I appreciate what you're doing here in the homeschool space too, because this is not for the faint of heart. No. It really is not. And it's, we need to support one another, and we need to love on one another, and, join together to get done what's best for our kids, this next generation of leaders. I think we forget sometimes that we're not just teaching kids just willy-nilly for whatever. These are the future leaders of, the world. Right. So our job is important.
What we're doing. Amen. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I enjoyed talking with Andrea. And again, if you have any questions and want to talk with her more, you can visit her website at AfricanAmericanHomeschoolMoms.com. And she has a lot going on there. So just make sure to check out her website and see what all is there, what kind of encouragement is there, and what resources are available to you. I know that she recently spoke at a conference, and so you might find more information about that on her website as well. So just be sure to check her out and go visit Andrea. And that is all I have for now. I hope that you were encouraged and inspired, and I would love for you to give a 5-star review on iTunes. So be sure to do that in your spare time. It really helps this podcast to keep going. So I'll talk to you guys next time. And until our next time together, happy homeschooling.